Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2. I'm here with my good friend, Master Giorgio, and we are going to talk about the fencing master's method for instructing the hits we were talking about last time, which was defense against direct attack to the 6th location. So, Master Giorgio, if you would introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll get on.
Yes, thank you, Stuart. My name is Giorgio. Everybody knows me as Giorgio. I don't think there are other Giorgios around giving lessons at the moment. And I'm very glad to explain you my system of coaching and to provoke special movements and to improve some skill of my students regarding special topics like the parry stxe.
All right.
And I will start with the basic explanation, and I will start like the fact that the most important thing of a coach is to make, in order to provoke the movement of his pupils, the coach has also to make movements which are technically correct and right. Otherwise, the student will have difficulties to recognize them when he's fencing. It means that my simulation of movements there has to be half speed, but still as I am intending to hit my student for real. So if I'm not trying to hit my student for real, my student will never feel or will never recognize the possibility to parry successfully. And in addition, if I'm not simulating my attacks properly and my students is not able to recognize them, it will be very easy for him to be a victim of second intention attacks.
Yeah, this was also said by the Polish instructor in the US, Tchaikovsky. Said like not using real actions in Epee lessons is criminal.
Yeah, I do agree. I didn't have I didn't have the possibility and the chance to read Tchaikovsky because unfortunately Tchaikovsky, he has been writing a lot and his bibliography of books is huge in all three weapons. But yeah, I do agree. He said something completely right. That is also one of my basics tips that I will suggest any other coach. So let's say if I want that my student is gonna parry sixth, then of course I cannot attack him at full speed, otherwise I will shock him. But I will direct my point on the side that I'm gonna hit and with the right energy that my student will feel the threat. So in order to give a better example of what I'm saying, then I will stand up and I will try to show you exactly what I will do. Let's say that I am in front of my students, and it's quite important to decide the distance for our exercises. And if I want to hit my student to the here to the shoulder in order to provoke a six parry, then I have to be at the right distance to perform a hit with my arm or with the lunge to the chest.
Yep.
So let's start from the most common position that every coach is doing. We are staying at the distance of the extension of my arm. It means that I have to consider the distance which is right for me in order to hit the chest of my student just the extension of my arm. It means that ideally I am here in guard position, and by extending my arm I should be able to hit the shoulder of my student.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, in Epee, it's a bit unusual, but what we are going to do now is just to work on the technique in order to provoke a correct parry sixth and the riposte to the chest. And this is, I remember that it's a typical foil action because, as I already said, in Epee there are three distance and blah, 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 foot, thigh, arm, and so on. But now let's work on this one. So, my student will be in, let's say, a low line invitation, which it means it will be down with the guard up and the point down.
Okay.
And this way he will invite me to hit him here. So at a special, let's say in this kind of position, I'm also staying with the point down or with the point up. It doesn't matter. What I will do is I will direct the point on the target and extend the arm. First, it will be slowly, and after I will increase the speed and the change of the rhythm. So it means at the beginning, I will do a movement which is slow, and after I will try to do that for real. Of course, I won't go that fast, but I will go a bit faster because the change of rhythm is something like is forcing your student to change also the speed. And when I'm doing this movement, I haven't to provoke the parry, a very fast parry of my student. My student has to parry only when the point, my point, is here. Because it's the right way to learn that you haven't to parry too early, because if you parry too early, your opponent will have a lot of time to change his action or to work as a second intention. So I will try to hit him straight, but my student has to react at the very last moment. And if he gets hit, well, he will learn next time to be much more fast in his reaction. Okay, so from this static position, I will also decide to work on the lunge. So I will make lunges by extending the arm and lunging, and my student will have to parry successfully.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, so, they're waiting for the end of your lunge, right? They're waiting right to the end, and then. Whoop.
Yeah, they should be able, let's say, to parry at the very last moment. So it means that they haven't to react fast as soon as they see the extension of my arm. They have to react fast as soon as they see that the threat is becoming real.
Yep.
In order to make it a bit more difficult in a second moment, what I can do, I will fake attack to check if he's reacting too early or not.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I mean, this is. I mean, let's step by step, making it easy, then making it harder, then checking, then making it harder.
Yeah. So if I realize that my student cannot, let's say, work successfully with this fake attack, then I will reduce the level of the difficulties in a way that he can slightly improve at the next lesson.
Yeah.
So right now I have been talking about static position. So I am standing, I'm not moving, I'm not doing any kind of footwork, and my student as well. Later on, when I can see that the reaction of my students, they are pretty good, then I will work also on the footwork. And on the footwork, first, I will lead. I will give, it means that I will give the rhythm, so he has to follow my footwork. And just wait exactly for the same movement that I was doing during the standing position. So let's say as a first exercise with the footwork, let's say he's always standing with the guard in the lower line, and he's following my movement. As soon as I am moving forward, backward, forward, backward. When I stand in my arm, he has to be ready to parry with the right timing.
Yep.
And
So the arm is going out, your arm is going out, and the student has to stay, the feet have to stay still. Waiting, then the lunge comes, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the right coordination between the different bits of the movement.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is that after I can see that my students can react properly with the footwork and the extension, and to fix very well the extension of my arm and to parry with the right timing, after I will make it a bit more, let's say, difficult. I will try to make it more difficult and to check whether my student can deal with this upper level of difficulties. So I will also do that with the lunge. It means that I will do the footwork, I will do the footwork backward and forward, and at a special moment I will extend my arm and then I will lunge. Of course, as a coach, and since I'm not that athletical anymore, my lunge won't be a huge lunge, a very classical one, but a typical epee lunge, which is much more a jump forward, and I won't go that low on my legs, because the problem of a long lunge in epee is that either you hit or not, and if you don't hit, your recover will be such a disaster that you can do that a second time. So these, let's say, are the basic exercises. So hit my student with the extension of my arm, hitting my student with the lunge from a standing position, repeating the same movements with the footwork where I am leading, and in the third part, if, let's say, my student gave me the idea that he is able to deal properly, my student has to lead and I have to follow.
Okay, now it's getting a bit like a real fight. We're building up to something that can really be used. Okay.
Yeah, and this is something that is actually is helping a lot my students to feel much better the timing, and also getting used to the real to the real situation of a fight. Because let's say if you are a fencer and you are staying like this, in epee your opponent can decide to attack you, he can decide not to attack you, and if he's leading, he will never attack you because he hasn't got no reason. So you can stay like this, like you did during the lesson, but if you are not, let's say, being very active, you will never provoke the attack of your opponent. So without making that particularly strategical, if your opponent is not moving, and because he's leading and you are not moving, then you have to force your opponent to move and to attack you, even if he doesn't like that. And if he doesn't like that, you have to push him until the last meter of the piste, in a way that he has got no chances, because otherwise he will be with both feet outside the piste. So the special moment, then you have to be ready to his desperate attack, and then you have to be able to do the parry riposte if in your strategy your plan is to do the sixth riposte. So what normally should be very careful a fencer when he's leading the footwork with the coach? He has to be very careful in a way that his step forward, when he's doing the step forward in the low line, he cannot make a step forward which is very close, because otherwise he will be automatically hit, like we did already during the initial part of the lessons. But if, let's say, you are doing properly the exercise in the standing position in this very short distance, you get used to parrying like normally a foil fencer that is able to parry at a close distance. And the fact is, normally when you are doing this kind of provocation, you are forcing your opponent to attack you on your step forward. You should be able to do the movement not like a classical step forward like this, because it's too dangerous. So I would always suggest to do the moving in two parts. So half step forward with the front leg, and if you see that the opponent is stepping backward, then you complete with the half step forward with the back leg, because this way you can always keep the right distance.
Yes.
So in the case that when I'm doing the first half step forward with my front leg, and I am in this kind of invitation, the opponent, you can see that the opponent wants to hit you, then instead of moving forward, you have to calculate the distance and to decide whether you have to stay there and to parry sixth, or you can modify by removing your foot from the front to the back. So it is something like, if my opponent is particularly fast or he decides to attack me with the flash, I can make half step forward, which is what the French they are calling appel, like in saber also. And if the opponent is coming, then I can do half step backward or closing the distance and to work on the short distance. In any case, the work of the coach is to be able, during the footwork of his students, to recognize the mistakes that the student is doing and trying to hit him intentionally. Of course, I'm not a sadist, and the student has to wear the jacket, but in this kind of footwork, where the student has got the choice of time, the coach has to play the real opponent of his student, because this is the only way for the students to get the real things and the right timing.
Yeah, I think that's something. I mean, you can explain to someone how to take these moves, but you can't really teach them, right? That's something they have to learn themselves by doing the same move like 1,000 times.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing you can do is put them in the situation where they can teach themselves.
Yes, exactly. So I think that one of the skills of the coach is to be able to create situations which are pretty common during the fights,
Mm-hmm.
And normally the coach has to also be able to mix the difficulties from easy to difficult or to an intermediate level in order not to keep always the same rhythm, because otherwise the student is getting used just to one speed and he won't be able to cope when the opponent has got a different speed.
All right. That's another thing about one-on-one lessons, right? Is that the coach always has the same speed. We can vary it, right? But we've always got the same. We've always got the same length arms.
And he's overweight and something like that.
Whoa, I mean, the coach is always the same height, always has the same arms, right? So, yeah. Pair exercises. I know people hate them. They hate to do them in clubs, but this is what they're for. You're doing little bits of your lesson with someone who's a different size.
Yeah,
someone who might be faster or slower.
Yeah, totally. What I would like also to specify, because sometimes it's not specified enough, is that considering that the distance is very close when you parry sixth to defend the chest, once you parry sixth, you should be able to hold the blade and to keep the guard outside in a way to avoid the remise during your riposte.
Yep.
So you should be able to parry, to hold properly the blade of the opponent, and to push the blade of the opponent outside in the meantime that you are placing your point. And I forgot also to explain that there are two different kind of riposte in sixth with the control of the blade. One is you parry sixth and you drive the point on the chest, and the other one, you parry sixth with the point already on the chest of the opponent, in a way that in the same time that you parry, you hit, and so you reduce the risk that once you parry sixth, your opponent is coming forward, cutting the distance, and after you haven't got the space anymore to place the point on the chest.
Yeah.
I hope.
But if there's two methods, they both must have strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yes, because when you parry sixth and you hold the blade, you hold properly the opponent blade, and after you can do the riposte whenever you decide, and you are stronger. If you are doing the parry in opposition without going back with the sixth, it can be possible that your opponent can also do a sitting parry on your sixth.
Or just angulates.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you're taking it with the edge out.
Yeah.
But
it's very important also to specify that there isn't an action which is the winning action. If your opponent knows exactly what you are doing, there is always the contrary actions. So you have always to hope that you are doing the right things at the right moment, and your opponent is not expecting what you are going to do. Or when it's realizing, it's too late.
Mm-hmm. So that's a part of the lesson that's not talked about, right? We talk about the skills, the distance, the timing, making it harder, easier. But at the same time, you're also trying to train them in their mind, right?
Absolutely.
So so when they're on that piece, they have to make the right choice, right? There's no perfect action.
Yeah. So one of the biggest rules that I learned during my life as a coach is I have to create. I have to be able to help my student to create a critic sense and to be able to transform my student in somebody that is totally independent from the tips of the coach, because by doing the things on the piste, he's realizing immediately what is correct to do and what is not correct to do. And so the biggest quality for a coach is to develop the feeling of the students to be completely independent and to recognize all the possible possible combination on the piste. So it's very important to have a complete vision and to be independent, because the problem is when you are on the piste and you are fencing, you are completely left alone. If you
Yeah.
if your coach is screaming at you, you have to do the sixth, you have to do the sixth. I mean, do you think that the other opponent is not so stupid to understand that you gave him a tip and he's letting him parry successfully? For me, doesn't make any sense. So normally I prefer to keep silent when my student is fencing, because this way I'm not disturbing his concentration and I'm not giving tips to his opponent.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
By the way all the combination of the action they have been explained during the lesson, if I am trying to tell him something that we didn't do during the lesson, well, it's too late to do that at the competition. So
yeah, yeah, that's, I mean, the dynamic between the coach and the pupil changes over time, right? At the start, you're the one in control teaching everything, and then eventually becomes much more equal, and then eventually you're basically just advising your fencer, because they know their fencing, you're not them. Different actions work for different people. You can advise them, but eventually when you're on the piste, you're all alone, and it's very lonely.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's your business to find a solution, and if you didn't try to find a solution during the lesson, who can help you? Nobody.
That's right. Okay, well, on that philosophical note, I think we'll leave it, and we'll look forward to next week when we'll be tackling another subject. So until then, Giorgio.
Okay, thank you very much, Stuart, and see you the next time. Bye.